Welcome to Forgotten Civilization, where we uncover the mysteries of the ancient world and bring their stories back to life. The Maya civilization. Over the past 2 episodes, we've explored the secrets of the Olmecs and the enigma of Atlantis. Today, we turn our gaze to one of the most advanced and intriguing cultures of the ancient Americas, the Maya. Their civilization has fascinated historians, archaeologists, and the public alike, not only for its monumental architecture and sophisticated society, but also for one of the most misunderstood elements of their culture, the calendar. And at the heart of this fascination lies one of the most notorious prophecies of the modern era, the so-called end of the world in 2012. But was this really what the Maya foretold? Or was it a case of modern misinterpretation, hype, and fear? To answer this question, we must first understand who the Maya were. The Mayan civilization flourished in Mesoamerica for nearly 2 millennia, reaching its peak between 250 and 900 CE during what scholars call the Classic Period. Stretching across modern-day southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, the Maya were not a single empire but a collection of city-states, each with its own rulers, dynasties, and traditions. These city-states such as Tikal, Palenque, Copan, and Calakmul were centers of political power, artistic production, and intellectual achievement. They were linked by trade networks, shared religious beliefs, and a common writing system, yet they also competed fiercely for dominance. What made the Maya extraordinary was not just their monumental pyramids, palaces, and ball courts, but their mastery of intellectual pursuits that rivaled those of any civilization in the ancient world. They developed one of the most sophisticated writing systems in the pre-Columbian Americas, using intricate hieroglyphs to record dynastic histories, myths, astronomical events, and calendrical calculations. They were also brilliant mathematicians who understood the concept of 0 centuries before it appeared in Europe. This mathematical prowess allowed them to create a calendar system of astonishing complexity and precision, one that would eventually give rise to the famous 2012 prophecy. But the Maya were more than scientists and scribes. They were also a deeply spiritual people whose worldview was structured around cycles of time. Unlike the linear concept of time that dominates Western thought, the Maya saw time as cyclical, with each age destined to rise, flourish, and then give way to the next. Their mythology spoke of previous worlds that had been created and destroyed before the current one, and this belief profoundly shaped their religious practices, rituals, and even political life. Rulers legitimized their power by aligning themselves with cosmic cycles, and major events from coronations to wars were timed to coincide with auspicious dates in the calendar. It is here, in this unique conception of time, that we find the seeds of the 2012 prophecy. For the Maya, calendars were not mere tools for tracking days, they were sacred instruments for connecting human life with the cosmos. By charting the movement of the sun, moon, Venus, and other celestial bodies, the Maya believed they could predict not only natural phenomena, but also the cycles of history itself. To them, every ending was also a new beginning. Yet centuries later, when fragments of their calendar were rediscovered, these cyclical endings were misunderstood as final conclusions. What the Maya saw as renewal, modern interpreters often twisted into apocalypse. Before we dive into the details of the Mayan calendar and the infamous 2012 prophecy, we must recognize the civilization's extraordinary achievements and enduring legacy. The Maya were astronomers who could predict solar eclipses with remarkable accuracy. They were architects who built towering pyramids aligned with the stars. They were historians who carved entire dynastic lineages into stone. And most importantly, they were thinkers who understood time not as a straight line, but as an endless rhythm, one that echoed through the heavens and the earth. This is the world into which the Mayan calendar was born, a world where time was sacred, rulers were divine, and history itself was woven into the cycles of the cosmos. It is a world far richer, far more complex, and far more fascinating than the simplified doomsday narrative that dominated headlines in 2012. And it is this world that we will now explore in depth, beginning with the structure of the Mayan calendar system itself. The calendar system. To truly understand the Mayan prophecy of 2012, we must first step into the intricate world of their calendar system. Unlike the simple 365-day solar calendar we use today, the Maya created a layered, interlocking system of calendars that tracked time on multiple scales, ranging from the everyday cycles of farming and rituals to vast spans of cosmic time stretching thousands of years. These calendars were more than practical tools. They were sacred instruments deeply tied to religion, astronomy, and the very structure of the universe. The first of these calendars was the Tzolk'in, a 260-day ritual calendar. Its origins remain mysterious, but scholars believe it may have been based on the human gestation period or agricultural cycles, linking human life with the fertility of the earth. The Tzolk'in was composed of 20 named days combined with 13 numbers, creating a repeating cycle of 260 unique combinations. Each day carried not just a number but a sacred significance. Priests consulted the Tzolk'in to determine auspicious dates for ceremonies, births, marriages, and even wars. A child's destiny was thought to be influenced by the day on which they were born, and rulers carefully timed their actions to align with favorable Tzolk'in dates. In this way, the Tzolk'in was more than a calendar. It was a map of cosmic influence guiding every aspect of Mayan life. The second calendar was the Haab, a solar calendar of 365 days, divided into 18 months of 20 days each, plus an additional 5 days known as Wayeb. These final 5 days were considered unlucky or dangerous, a time when the boundary between the human and spirit worlds grew thin. People avoided major decisions or travel during Wayeb, believing it to be a period of cosmic instability. Unlike the Tzolk'in, which guided ritual, the Haab was closely tied to agricultural cycles, the planting of maize, the harvesting of crops, and the timing of festivals that honored the gods who sustained life. Together, the Tzolk'in and Haab interlocked like gears in a grand machine, forming what scholars call the calendar round. It took 52 Haab years, about 18,780 days, for the same combination of Tzolk'in and Haab dates to repeat. This 52-year cycle was deeply significant to the Maya. At the completion of each cycle, ceremonies were held to renew the world, rekindle sacred fires, and ensure the continued favor of the gods. The calendar round gave structure to human life, anchoring rituals, dynasties, and agricultural cycles in a recurring rhythm of time. But while this system could measure decades, it was not sufficient to record longer spans of history or myth. For that, the Maya turned to the long count calendar. The long count was a system designed to measure vast stretches of time far beyond the human lifespan. It functioned like a cosmic clock, tracking the days from a fixed starting point in the distant past, August 11th, 3114 BCE, according to our modern correlation. To the Maya, this was the date when the current world, the fourth creation, was born. The long count divided time into units called baktuns, each representing 144,000 days, or about 394 years. By combining smaller and larger units, days, kin, months, winal, years, tun, and centuries, katun, the Maya could record exact historical dates stretching thousands of years into the past and future. What makes the long count remarkable is not just its mathematical sophistication, but its philosophical depth. For the Maya, history itself was cyclical. Just as the sun rose and set, just as the seasons repeated, so too did ages of creation rise and fall. Each baktun carried its own meaning, shaped by myth and prophecy. Kings and priests studied the long count to situate their reigns within cosmic history, linking their authority to the unfolding cycles of time. And here lies the root of the 2012 prophecy. According to the long count, the current cycle, the 13th baktun, was set to end on December 21st, 2012. For the Maya, this was not an arbitrary date. It marked the completion of a grand cycle that had begun over 5,000 years earlier. But what did this ending mean? Did the Maya foresee a cosmic catastrophe, the destruction of the world, or something else entirely? To answer this, we must understand the Maya's cyclical view of time. To them, the completion of a cycle was not a disaster, but a renewal, a moment when one era ended and another began. Just as the end of the 52-year calendar round was a time of ritual renewal, So too was the end of the 13th Baktun a transition, not an apocalypse. Yet when fragments of the long count inscriptions were rediscovered in the modern era, their meaning was distorted. Western interpreters, shaped by a linear concept of time and fascinated by apocalyptic visions, projected their fears onto the Mayan calendar, turning what was meant as renewal into prophecy of doom. It is worth noting that only a handful of Mayan inscriptions even mention the end of the 13th Baktun, and none describe it as a global catastrophe. Instead, they describe it as a time when divine beings would preside, when rituals would mark the turning of the age, and when life would continue in a new cycle. To the Maya, the universe was eternal, and time was infinite. The world had ended before, yes, but it had always been reborn. In this way, the Mayan calendar was both a scientific and spiritual masterpiece, uniting astronomy, mathematics, and myth into a single system that mapped not only the heavens, but also human destiny. It stood as a testament to the Maya's profound understanding of cycles of life, death, and rebirth. And yet, centuries later, this wisdom would be misunderstood, misinterpreted, and sensationalized into one of the most infamous prophecies of modern times. The 2012 prophecy, myth versus reality. By the dawn of the 21st century, the ancient wisdom of the Mayan calendar had collided with the modern world in ways the Maya themselves could never have imagined. What had once been carved in stone on temple walls and recorded in codices by priestly scribes became the subject of documentaries, best-selling books, online forums, and Hollywood blockbusters. At the center of this frenzy was a single electrifying date, December 21st, 2012. For millions across the globe, that day was believed to mark the end of the world. The belief did not emerge from Mayan descendants, scholars, or archaeologists, but from a mixture of misinterpretation, sensationalism, and cultural projection. To understand how a calendar meant to track cycles of renewal became synonymous with apocalypse, we must separate what the Maya actually believed from what the modern world invented. The roots of the 2012 prophecy lie in the long count calendar. As we've explored, the Maya believed time was cyclical, not linear. Just as the seasons repeated and the sun rose each day, cosmic cycles moved in repeating patterns. The completion of the 13th Baktun in 2012 was seen as the close of one great cycle, roughly 5,025 years long. For the Maya, this was not the end of existence but the end of one era and the birth of another. Yet when this knowledge resurfaced in the modern era, especially in the mid to late 20th century, it collided with Western apocalyptic traditions. Western culture has long been fascinated with end times prophecies, whether biblical notions of the Last Judgment, medieval fears of the year 1000, or modern anxieties about nuclear war and climate change. When outsiders encountered Mayan inscriptions about the end of a Baktun, they interpreted it not as a cyclical renewal, but as a cataclysm. One of the earliest modern references to 2012 as a significant date came from scholars such as Michael D. Coe, who in the 1960s suggested in his writings that the Maya might have seen the end of the 13th Baktun as the end of the world. Though Coe himself expressed it cautiously, this idea was picked up and amplified by authors and media outlets eager for mystery and drama. By the late 20th century, the 2012 prophecy had merged with New Age movements. Writers claimed that December 21st, 2012 would mark not destruction, but a spiritual transformation, a cosmic shift that would raise human consciousness to a higher level. Some spoke of planetary alignments, others of an impending pole shift that would debates about how modern societies think about time and history. Western culture often views time as a straight line, a march from past to future. But the Mayan concept of cyclical time, where endings are also beginnings, offered an alternative. Philosophers and futurists began to question whether our linear obsession with progress blinds us to the rhythms of nature and the need for renewal. In this sense, the Mayan calendar became a mirror, reflecting back our assumptions about history, technology, and destiny. And yet, alongside these positive legacies, the 2012 phenomenon also highlighted the dangers of cultural misinterpretation. For many Maya, it was frustrating to see their heritage turned into a spectacle for profit. Movies, books, and merchandise often stripped their traditions of meaning, reducing them to exotic mysteries or apocalyptic warnings. This appropriation, while profitable for outsiders, sometimes overshadowed the voices of those who actually carried Mayan culture forward. Nevertheless, the story of 2012 remains one of paradox. It was at once a distortion and a revival, a misinterpretation that nevertheless drew global attention to one of the world's most extraordinary civilizations. The date passed, the apocalypse never came, but the Maya, both ancient and modern, were remembered, studied, and celebrated as never before. Looking back, we might say that the true prophecy of 2012 was not about destruction at all. It was about revelation. It revealed the gap between ancient and modern worldviews, between cyclical and linear concepts of time. It revealed our anxieties about the future and our yearning for meaning in a rapidly changing world. And it revealed the enduring power of ancient wisdom to speak to modern crises. Today, more than a decade after 2012, the Mayan calendar continues to inspire. Scholars still study its glyphs, spiritual seekers still meditate on its cycles, and indigenous communities continue to live by its rhythms. The fascination endures not because the world ended, but because the Maya understood something timeless, that life moves in cycles, that endings are beginnings, and that time itself is sacred. And so, the legacy of the 2012 prophecy is not one of apocalypse, but of connection between past and present, between ancient wisdom and modern curiosity, between the fears of a globalized world and the resilience of cultures that have endured for millennia. As we bring this journey to a close, let us pause and reflect on what the story of the Mayan calendar and the so-called 2012 prophecy truly teaches us. For centuries, stone temples, glyphs, and inscriptions lay silent, buried beneath the jungles of Central America. When they were rediscovered, their voices were too often misunderstood, twisted into apocalyptic predictions, stripped of their true meaning, and turned into sensational myths. Yet beneath all the noise, the Maya's wisdom remains clear and profound. The Maya never predicted the end of the world. What they envisioned was far more subtle, far more powerful. The rhythm of cycles, the eternal dance of time, the reminder that every ending is also a beginning. To them, December 21st, 2012, was not a day of destruction, but a turning of the page in a cosmic book, one chapter closing so that another might begin. And perhaps that is the lesson we need most today. In a world gripped by uncertainty, climate change, war, and technological upheaval, we too hunger for meaning. We too search for signs of renewal, for moments when humanity might turn from one age to another. The Mayan calendar, with its cycles of renewal, whispers across the centuries that balance is possible, that harmony with the earth is essential, and that our destiny is not a straight line into oblivion but a circle that continually offers the chance to begin again. This is the true legacy of the Mayan prophecy, not a Hollywood apocalypse, not a countdown clock, but a timeless reminder that the wisdom of the ancients can still guide us. The Maya, far from being a vanished people, continue to live, to practice their traditions, and to teach us through their resilience and their understanding of life's cycles. And so, as we close this exploration of one of history's most misunderstood prophecies, we invite you to carry forward its deeper lesson. Seek balance, honor the cycles of life, and remember that the end of one age is simply the birth of another. This has been Forgotten Civilization, where we uncover the mysteries, wisdom, and enduring legacies of the ancient world. If you've been inspired by this journey into the heart of Mayan timekeeping, and the myth of 2012. Then join us for future explorations, because the past still has so much to teach us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Forgotten Civilization. By doing so, you help keep this knowledge alive and ensure that the voices of the ancients continue to echo into our present and future. Because history is not forgotten, it is waiting to be remembered.